Good afternoon, and welcome to our webinar career series, Embracing Accountability, Foster Ownership, and Drive Results in Your Team. I want to mention a few upcoming events. We've got a Distinguishing Truth from Balderdash and Private Credit on September 18th from 12 to 1, and then a sponsor webinar series, Beyond Active and Passive, the Customization of Finance on September 25th from 12 to 1, brought to us by Invesco. Last but not least, a webinar series, A View on Washington and State of the 2024 Election on October 2nd from 12 to 1, featuring Libby Cantrell. Check our website for more details on these and other upcoming events and register today. We are thrilled to be joined today by Kim Zoller, CEO and founder of ID 360. Each one of us has hidden and untapped potential. Kim Zoller is dedicated to guiding individuals and companies to unlock this potential. For over 3 decades, Kim has empowered leaders and businesses worldwide, equipping them with necessary tools to enhance engagement, retention, and personal and professional growth. I also want to welcome our friends from Los Angeles and Philadelphia who are hopefully on the line today. We'd also like for you to please submit your questions via the Q&A feature within the Zoom controls at the bottom of your screen. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kim to begin.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Kathy, and great to be with you. I put in the chat, where are you signing in from? And if you can add that and share that with me, that would be amazing. I am coming in from Dallas, and as Kathy said, today's session, embracing accountability. So let's jump right in.
Whoa, that's not good.
Oh, I don't need this. I'm already late.
Somebody will come. Anybody out there?
Do you have a phone?
No. Sorry. Somebody! Hello? There are 2 people stuck on an escalator and we need help. Now, would somebody please do something? Help! I don't believe this. You gotta be kidding me.
I'm gonna cry.
Well, there's not enough left to do, is there?
Okay, so have any of you felt that way before, where you almost cannot believe when you've asked someone to do something and they just don't do anything, and then they're like, help, and you're wondering what happened here? Like, how obvious is it? How obvious is it to step up the escalator? I don't know if that resonates with you, if any of you have seen that before, but I love that video because when I look at that and I think about accountability and ownership, that sometimes we ourselves can get stuck and others can too. And so when I asked you, what does accountability mean to you? I just wanted to share what we heard from you. It means following through on commitments you've made. It means being reliable and dependable. Second, taking responsibility for my actions and decisions, answering for the results of my choices, whether good or bad, not blaming others for my shortcomings or failures, holding myself to high ethical and performance standards, owning up to my contributions or lack thereof on team projects. So the question is, even relating back to that escalator, is following through on commitments I have made. If that is what it means to you, what does that mean when we get stuck? What does it mean to other people when they get stuck? And why is it that things get dropped all the time? And so when we define accountability, we look at three major things. We look at taking ownership, and it means taking responsibility for what we said we would do. It means being answerable, and that is a good thing. How are we answering to each other, to ourselves, and to all the stakeholders around us? And then last of all, it is professional significance, that we want accountability to be a driver for people, not be something that holds people back, but yet something that is, because I am accountable, because I am answering to my team, because I am taking ownership, I actually feel more purposeful. And I think that that's really important as we go into a session on accountability, which is, how do we drive accountability? How are you accountable? Are you doing the things to hold yourself accountable? And what are we doing to drive accountability? So when we look at this definition and what we are doing today in this session, this really is about taking ownership, helping others take ownership, being answerable to each other, and being purposeful so that we are significant in what we are doing. So the next question that we had was, what's your biggest challenge? And I think that this was really telling, and I'd love to just dig into this even more, having regular conversations about accountability, holding others accountable, and we'll talk about that. And if I want you, as you watch this, to connect the dots, that having regular conversations about accountability and holding others accountable go actually hand in hand. Connecting daily tasks to big picture, which we're going to get into as well. Now, keeping in mind that, again, we're connecting the dots between these three things, that if we aren't having conversations, excuse me, then we cannot hold people accountable. But yet that goes into our next question, which is, well, how often do I discuss it? And, sometimes monthly and never. When we look at daily and weekly, every one of you who answered, that's a 0. And I hope by the end of this discussion to get today, that changes. Because you see, there is a difference between accountability and pure delegation of something, and how we leverage people. And so we'll dig into that. And one of the biggest problems that we face and we find with our clients is this. It's that if we go back and we look at, I have this huge challenge that, the challenge is having regular conversations and then holding others accountable, but yet we're not having those conversations. We're not having those check-ins. And then we expect people to perform and to do the things we want them to do. It just isn't happening. And so today we are going to really get into how we can hold others accountable. And this question is delegating and then expecting it to be done, which is such a big issue. And I always say that false expectations are ones that are not completely stated. And so that to me is a false expectation. If we have not agreed on it 100% and it's not fully in, like we've laid it out, then it's a false expectation. And then the next question was, the next answer to this is, how do we hold people accountable? 37 regularly scheduled meetings, and then daily check-ins. So before I go on, Ryan, you have a question, or your hand is up, and we could put that question in the Q&A. I'm not sure if you can unmute on this webinar. Not sure. Kathy, maybe you can let me know. Yeah.
No, they're not able to correctly.
Okay, so Ryan, if you do have a question, if you will please put it in the webinar chat, that would be amazing. And if I don't see it, Jade or Kathy will share it with me. Okay, so what does accountability sound like? Does it sound like this?
It's not like I don't want to be accountable, but there's just so much going on. Honestly, I can't be held responsible for everything. I mean, it's not my job to chase everyone down, right? And besides, we didn't have clear goals. How can I be accountable for something that wasn't clear from the start? Plus, who even has the time for all this accountability stuff? I'm juggling a million things. And anyway, the team should know what's expected by now.
So I want you to write in the chat, does that sound familiar to you? Does that sound familiar to you? So what are some of the things that we heard? We heard a lot of shifting the blame. Shouldn't someone else do it? And so, you know, I think that one of the biggest things with accountability is sharing with your team. There are benefits to accountability, having this conversation with your team. So please, if you would, I want you to write down notes that resonate with you and put things in the chat. If something really resonates with you, I want you to put it in the chat so that if someone else didn't hear it, they hear it as well. And I can tell you that through the years, over the last 32 years with our clients, we have spent so much time on driving teams, building teams, on development of leaders based on accountability. And when you put in systems on accountability, then this is the benefits are so incredibly large. And we know that there are some major misconceptions around accountability, that people think like, oh, if I'm accountable, then it's a punishment. And actually, it's not a punishment. Accountability is a process of winning. And when we turn it around and we turn around what the definition of it is amazing how that changes. And the other thing is that I am curious, I'd love you to write in the chat, as a leader, do you feel like it's your responsibility for the accountability? Like it's on you. You have to set it up a certain way, and then you're ultimately accountable. I'm curious what you think about that, that leaders are the only ones that should be accountable. So curious, love you to write in the chat what you think about that. So as we look at this, I want to talk about what are we doing today? We're talking about the pillars of accountability, responsibility, empowerment, and ownership, which equals results. I'm going to go into a framework called rapid planning methodology, which is really how do you set up systems, a really amazing way to set up systems and to take tasks and make them accountable to the goals and the outcomes that you are reaching, and you can do it together. And then the third thing that we're going to talk about are accountable culture strategies, open communication, feedback, and recognition. So, all right, I just want to comment on a few things, Luke, that everyone shares accountability with their team members. It's amazing. Yes. So the question is, if we're sharing it, again, what are our expectations? How are we having the discussion? And do we know that everyone's on the same page? So something to think about with that. And then how many ways can you say, have you done it? Now, I am going to challenge you. I love, love, love that question. I love that you said that, because this is your key, or your clue. I shouldn't say your clue, your key, your clue. That question is your clue to say, wait a minute, let me really dig into how am I holding people accountable? So what is happening when people aren't taking ownership and they don't have, like that, Joe, lack of follow through, avoiding difficult conversations, making excuses, passing the buck? I want to tell you that what it so many times comes down to is that people don't know one of three things. They don't know their piece of the puzzle. They don't know how to do it, and they don't want to ask how to do it because they feel like they should, and they don't feel autonomous, or they feel like decisions and things have been taken to taken away from them before. And so why should they be the one who's accountable? So I want you to think about that there's so much more to this than what is wrong with someone that they can't just get it done. And so something that came in is that people don't do what you expect, people do what you inspect, and that is the truth. Now, here's the thing that is so critically important about that comment, Richard, is that how do we do it in a way that makes people feel motivated and excited? So let's dive into that. I want to start with the most important formula, and I'd like you to jot these down. By the way, at the end of this webinar, you are going to have a QR code which you can download the slides. So download the deck. So please hold tight, and at the end you will get that. Okay, this is the success formula. We are going to use this for the rest of our time together. What is the outcome? I'm having a conversation with you. What is the outcome? What are we trying to produce? And then why is this important? Why is this important? And the why is so important to accountability that we don't even realize it. That one of the most important pieces of data that we know is that if people don't, number one, know where they're going, number two, they don't feel like they're a piece of the puzzle, or why is this project so important, their buy-in to it is just incredibly much lower. And so when you look at any project that you're doing, I want you to take something right now where you're having trouble holding people accountable. And I want you to say, have you put some systems in place where they know the outcome? Do they know why it's so important? Do they know why their piece is so important? And then what are the actions? And that's what we're going to focus on today. And then how will you measure if this has been successful? So my goal for you today is that you leave here with some major action items that you can put into place, and then you can measure how successful they have been. And I can tell you one thing I thought about as I woke up this morning is that many of you are tenured professionals. And I think that sometimes the longer we have been in business, we forget some of the key basic things to making our team even more successful, to understanding that if we do everything, then other people won't do those things. And so we take away this accountability structure by being so driven and so on top of everything. So just food for thought as we continue. So one of the things with the outcome that a lot of people do, and that we see quite a lot with our clients, is that they are so focused on the problem. So when I said to you, do you have a situation, or think of a situation where you're having an accountability issue or an accountability challenge? I want you to just stop for a moment and forget the problem and think about the outcome. I also, when you go to people and we have conversations about why things aren't done, just like, how many times can we say, have you done it? It's not about that. It's about this is the outcome. This is the outcome, not this is the problem, or you haven't done something, or this work hasn't been completed. This is what we are shooting for. Now let's make sure that we're shooting for that. And I think that this is one of the most game-changing pieces of information that you will get today. And you will really, if you're not focused on the outcome, that this will be a game changer for how you do business with the people around you. So I want you to look at this, and I want to just focus on 3 pillars of accountability. There's responsibility, empowerment, ownership. Responsibility, being accountable, starts with taking responsibility for our actions. It's understanding. It's our piece of the pie. The empowerment piece is, are you empowering people? Are you giving people the competencies they need and the autonomy they need? And then ownership is really two pieces. Ownership is what they take and their actual buy-in, not an agreement of I'm going to do a task, but actual ownership of it. And we cannot take actual ownership of anything unless we feel like we are empowered. And so a question I have for you in a poll that's going to come up is, which aspect of accountability do you find most challenging in your team? Now, some of you had answered it in before, but I would love for us to answer it now. And this poll, I believe, is going to go up. And let me know. Okay, here we go. Here's the poll. Take a moment, please. Okay, keep going. Okay, a few more, please. We have 64% participated. What about the rest? What about the rest? Okay, which aspect of accountability do you find most challenging in your team? Ensuring team members take responsibility for their actions and tasks, encouraging team members to feel empowered to make decisions and take ownership, getting team members to be accountable for their outcomes. All of these are equally challenging. Okay, so let's go into, well, what are, and here are the results. And so as we look at this, let's talk about how do we get people to take responsibility? Well, first of all, just even from what I have mentioned, I want to ask you, do your team members know the outcome? Do they know the result? Like, what are you trying to achieve? And do they know their piece of the puzzle? Do they know why you're doing it? Do they know where they fit in all of that? And so as we think about this responsibility, it's accepting our duties. That's one piece of it, accepting the tasks, but it's agreeing to the why. And if we don't ask the question of do you know the why? Do you know your piece of this puzzle? Then we are missing a major piece of buy-in and gaining and the credibility for someone else to be accountable. Now, the clarity, the strategies. Do you paint a picture? I want you to think about actually painting a picture. And when you're painting something, you have all of the pieces. Like if you looked at any painting or picture around you, it's complete. And one of the things that we fail to do as leaders is that we fail to paint the picture for our people. And so they don't understand the big picture. And within that, they are not accountable. And so this is a major piece of accountability, is if you, again, think about the challenge that you're having and that comment about how many times can I ask you to do something? I want you to really go back and say, have I painted a picture for this person? Because that is so incredibly important, and see if that changes. The other thing that I want to talk about when we talk about being responsible and giving empowerment is asking someone, why didn't you do something, is one of the worst things that we can do. Why didn't you do it? Imagine you're 5 years old, you're 10 years old, and your mom or your parent or a teacher is saying, well, why didn't you do this? And you think that it's going to actually help find out. We're not using root cause analysis at this point. We're really blaming someone. And the smaller we make people feel, the less accountable they will be. And so this is a really, really key piece, is to take this out of your vocabulary. What you can say, on the other hand, is let's figure out what didn't work so we can fix it and avoid the problems next time. So if you, as someone's leader, are not giving someone the empowerment, then and I did this for so many years. I would sit down with someone and be like, why didn't this happen? Didn't we discuss this? Didn't I explain it? It was all about like, I did my part. What about you doing your part? And when I started reframing my conversations, it completely shifted the way my team interacted, and it changed the whole accountability process within our team. Our client, Tony, we have worked with he and his entire team around the world, really focusing on accountability. And this is a great quote from him. By focusing on accountability, we empowered every leader to take charge of their outcomes. The shift wasn't just in performance, it was in mindset. Accountability became a habit, not a demand. And so even these little things that we're talking about today, about shifting your verbiage, shifting your mindset, realizing that people need to know. The data shows us they need to know why they're doing something. They need to know their piece of the puzzle. They need to know what the outcome is. It shifts the way they handle their responsibility, their empowerment, and their ownership. Realizing that people are engaged and are motivated by 3 intrinsic factors, which I have mentioned, and I just want to really nail it down, and that is fostering their belonging. Do they know their piece of the puzzle? The second is developing the competency. Do they really know? Now, if we give people competencies and we teach them, and then we expect them just to know, and if they ask a question and we say things like, well, we've shown you, or we've done that before, realize that people won't come back to us. And people want autonomy. Don't we all want autonomy? Is there anyone in this group, and I'm curious, you could write in the chat, is there anyone in this group who likes to be micromanaged? So that's the first question. Do you like to be micromanaged? It's a ridiculous question. Now my question is that do you micromanage? And if you micromanage people, that isn't accountability. What you're doing is you're actually taking away the accountability. So I want you to go back and ask yourself, do they belong? Have I given them what they need? And do they feel autonomous? And if I do not feel that someone can be autonomous, then I need to go back and I need to develop more competencies. So we are clear. We set clear expectations. As I said to you before, if we don't set very clear expectations, then they are false expectations. If you work a certain way and you expect other people to work that way, then it is a false expectation. And just like Richard said, that expecting and inspecting go hand in hand. But here's the thing, how are you inspecting? Are you inspecting through micromanaging, or are you inspecting because you've come up with an agreement of when you're going to be checking in? So let's go into this incredible methodology, which was number 2 on our agenda. And that is, it's called rapid planning methodology. It starts with a result. It goes into purpose. It just like our success formula. And now we have a massive action plan. So this is what it looks like. I sit down with a person. I sit down with my group and I say, let's talk about the outcomes. And it's in that middle, the bullseye, our result, our outcome. What do I really want? What is the outcome? What result am I committed to achieving? And then you have that discussion with your group. What are you committed to achieving? And then we go into the purpose, the why. Why are we doing this? Why is it a must? Why must we do this? Know their why. Know your why. See if there are any questions and make sure they align. And then you come up with all of the action items to make that happen. And how do you do that? You do that by asking them questions. What do you think it will take? What do I think? And you jot down everything. And then you go into assigning, okay, people that tell us that then are tracked to the outcome so that everyone knows what their tasks are related to the outcome. If you have people who are doing work that they don't know this result, this outcome, they don't know the why, then the tasks will get put on the back burner because other things will always come up. So this is going to be obviously in the slide deck when you get it. So I want you, as you go through this incredible process, again, go through every project you have right now. Say to yourself, say to your team, do we know the outcome? Do we know what we're trying to achieve? Do we know why we're trying to achieve this? Do we know what we're doing for our team or for our clients? And how are all the ways that we're doing it? And then again, discussing that why, going through after that, going through that it is that if, oh, sorry. Oh my gosh, what happens? What happened? I'm sharing something. Hold on one second. I just lost my deck. So I'll just keep talking. That if we are discussing our why, then that's our next piece. Now, the action items, this is really, really critical with the action items. When you calendar things and you get people to put things on the calendar and you all are agreeing on what is on that calendar, you can check in. You can check in with each other. I'm just going to share my deck again in just a second. And that is how we use this methodology of RPM. And so I want you, I would like you to think about as you implement a system like this, to say to yourself, are you setting your goals? Do people, again, do they know the outcome? Do they know the why? And do you know all the actions? Now, what does that look like from a weekly basis? It looks like every week you are able to sit down with people and say, where are you on your tasks that relate to our outcome? And these are conversations that are not micromanaged, but where people are accountable. And if you're not the person that they need to be accountable for or to, then it's putting them with accountability buddies. And that to me is the other thing that has made so many of our clients be so successful. So just another example of Adrienne Court, after implementing the accountability structures, we learned our teams didn't just meet their goals. They started exceeding them. It transformed our culture into one where ownership and results are the norm, not the exception. So we implemented RPM with all of her teams. And what they found was they had accountability buddies. They were checking in with each other. If they didn't know something, they got the information. They knew the outcome. They set their, their deadlines when they knew the due dates. They all knew, they all felt completely tied into the results. And that is how those structures held everyone accountable. So you have to ask yourself, when you just ask someone to do something, what are you doing? Are you just delegating it or are you leveraging them? And if you are leveraging the people in your team and mentoring them and growing them and utilizing their best skills, then you'll put in structures where they can succeed. So I'm curious, the poll is going to go up. How often do you use a structured framework like rapid planning methodology for setting clear expectations and goals? If you will please answer this. Okay. Amazing. Amazing, amazing. Keep going, keep going. Okay, 5 more seconds. How often do you use a structured framework like RPM for setting clear expectations and goals? Okay, so let's look at these results. The first one is always 0. often is 18%, sometimes 27, rarely 27, never 27. So this is my suggestion for you, especially if accountability is frustrating. Sit down with your team. Say, you know what? I've done you guys a disservice. I realize that we don't have a process of sharing these goals together and holding each other accountable and creating purpose for all of us. And that is creating a system. And going through something like an RPM or other systems. And if you need help, you please reach out to me, because this is a game changer. The bottom line results that you get from having structures of accountability are incredible. And now I want to talk about one of the things that just holds us back, and that is communication. We many times think that we are communicating, and we communicate openly. I was with a client the other day, and they were saying that one of the things that they had been hearing from their engagement survey was that they're not an open communicator. So I went and I spent some time with her team, and what I found out was when they ask her questions, she says things like, remember, we've done this before. I told you this the other day. We discussed this the other day. Didn't you agree to this in the meeting? I thought you said you would do this. So what happens is that trust and communication and collaboration dissipates. And I want you to ask yourself, how are you communicating? Are you frustrated? Where are you using emotional intelligence within this accountability structure? Again, it goes back to that our mindset and realizing that it's not just a cut and dry process. Our minds and how we feel are a huge part of accountability. So I want to give you a really incredible feedback model for you to use. And that is called PLAN. And what it sounds like is this. Kathy, let's talk about what our purpose is, what our purpose for this project is, or why I've asked you to do something. My outcome is this. Do you agree that this is important? And get their input, ask questions, or do you know why we're doing this? And then find out. So that is the P. It is purpose, and we get agreement. When you just load things on people and they nod their heads yes, and you think that's agreement, it's not agreement. That's them just either, and maybe it's understanding and processing, and maybe it's not. So we have a discussion. What do you think the purpose is? What do you think is another purpose? My main purpose is this. This is my goal. This is my outcome. Again, we're layering on the success formula. Once we do that, we say, okay, this is where we are right now. Now, most people, I don't know about you, and you can put this in the chat. Most people, what they do is they go from P to N, okay? And they literally are like, this is what we needed, or better yet, it's more like, here's our problem, this is the solution. Well, if you keep doing that, you'll never promote accountability, ever. And Luke, I'll come to your question in just a moment about remote teams. Okay, so we'll talk about that in just a moment. So actually, let's talk about it now with Plan, because it's a great time to talk about it. In your virtual meetings, you say, hey guys, let's get agreement on what we're doing. This is what the purpose is. And I want to discuss it, like the purpose, what questions do you have? Or what do you think the purpose is? And get them to each go around or write it in the chat. And to just focusing on the outcome. And so you're getting input from your virtual teams as you go along. Many times I would suggest this, you may want to jot this down. I don't give my answer until I hear theirs. So I'll ask a question. I'll say, everyone needs to weigh in. Okay. On the look, where are you now? Where are we? Hey, let's do a quick weigh in. Hey, Joe, where are you? Hey, Sally, where are you? Kathy, where are you? This is where I'm now. If you have a very large team, you have that team lead. Where's your group? So we're looking at what is current. And we're not saying, why is it this? We're saying, let's look at it. Okay, Now, here's our outcome. Here's our purpose, our P. This is where we are. What do we need to do to get to that P? What do you guys think? What do you think are what would be your top 3 ideas? Let them come up with the ideas. If you want accountability and buy-in, you let other people come up with things. If they don't know, then you can teach them. Again, it goes back to that competency. And here we are in our next steps. Let's have check-ins every week. Let's have check-ins with your accountability partner. Let's create a next step so we all know we're on the same page. And then this is key. Going back to what Richard said, you must follow up. If you just say, okay, we're going to check in next week and you never do, it will never happen, because basically what you're saying is that your system of accountability is not a system and really you're too busy. So this methodology of the communication, of the feedback and feed forward model to hold people accountable is an amazing way to have conversations, both one-on-one and in a group. The RPM, just going back, there was a question about RPMs and how do you use RPMs even with this? You can, first of all, an RPM, I have RPMs for every project that I work on by myself. I have projects with my team, and I have projects with different people for different RPMs, different goals. So RPM is a methodology that can be used individually with a few people or with a very large group of people. So that's something. When you have and you're using RPM, you can literally use plan on top of it. Okay, guys, we know our outcome. Let's take a look where we are this week. Let's take a look what's going on. How far have we moved the needle? Okay, great. Now let's go back to all those actions. We know our why. Let's go back to all those actions that we put. What 5 actions are we going to do this week to get us 80% of our goal? Let's do the tasks that are going to get us to our goal faster. That is key. And then, okay, great. Joe, you're doing this. Sally, you're doing this. Kim, you're doing that. Kathy, you're doing that. Those are our next steps. We'll weigh in next week. And again, it's not that you have to be in charge of that. There could be a team lead who's in charge of that. If you're the one, then you're the one. And this is a way to do this. Is this helpful for you? I would love for you to write in the chat. Is this helpful for you? Is this helpful for you? And please write in the chat. Okay. Amazing, amazing, amazing. I mean, these are things that when we work with all these companies, these are all the processes that we do with them. And it doesn't have to, I mean, you literally, you once you introduce this to your team, you literally just can keep coming back to this. You're not recreating the wheel. So I want to share with you what plan sounds like. So here we go.
Let's walk through a recent conversation using the plan framework. I start with purpose. Would you agree the most important outcome is keeping our clients happy by delivering what we promised? Once we aligned on the outcome, I moved to, look, can you explain what happened and how we missed the deadline? I then reflect, so what I heard was there was a mix-up. An admin was out and an important email wasn't followed up on. Then I moved to action. What actions can we take to prevent this in the future? So what I heard was a suggestion to implement a task management system to track deadlines and prevent missed tasks when key team members are unavailable. Lastly, we discuss next steps. How will we know this is working and what are our next steps? I wrap up great. Let's focus on keeping clients happy by delivering on time and meeting our commitments. And this is an example of how plan is an accountability conversation.
Okay, so now I want to go back. There was a question about how granular do you get when mapping the massive action plan and using plan. You get granular. You get super granular. You get people, they don't have to tell you all the ins and outs, but there needs to be like every person, including you, like I have it on mine. I can show you mine. Every person needs to write down the tasks, but they must align. This is so key. Are the tasks aligning with the outcome? It is so easy to be busy, and we all get super busy. So the more granular you get, even at the beginning, to really make sure that you're building out those tasks and make sure that they're mapping to the results, you'll get better results. You will get better results. So hopefully that answered your question. So another thing, just going back to our mindset, and we're looking at all these pieces is of communication, and how we give people feedback, and how we give them feed forward, is that one of the key things is number 2, private conversations and asking questions. It is our jobs as leaders to be curious. That's it. I have a big Post-it note on my desk. Curious. Be curious. Always, because I'm a talker. So I can just like, okay, this is and then I could get right into, this is the problem, here's the solution. That was my fallback. So now, after doing this for so many years, we look at the outcome. I listen to people's perspectives. I ask a lot of questions. I don't do anything that is going to make someone feel like a fool in front of other people. And then we're following up. We're following up constantly. We're giving people exact examples. We're not making assumptions, because within the assumptions, we are really we're hurting ourselves, and we're hurting other people, and we're not giving them, we're not able to give them autonomy, because we're not sure if they can actually do it. So let's talk about recognition. And as we pull all this together, I am curious, what do you believe is the most effective way to recognize and reward accountability in the workplace? So if you would, we're going to put up a poll. Here it is. And take a few minutes. What do you believe is the most effective way to recognize and reward accountability in the workplace? Okay. A lot of public recognition. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll, and let me share the results. The first one, public recognition, verbal praise in meetings, employee of the month, 46%. What do you believe is the most effective way? I don't know why that's there. So, okay, increased responsibilities or promotions, 25%, personal thank you notes from leadership. Okay, so when we look at this, what I encourage you, and I want you to think about within all of this, is that we know some huge data. The data is happier people, better results. When people feel like they are a piece of what you're doing, when they know what they're doing, they're happy, and they're taking that they know that they're succeeding, and they feel purposeful, that there is an increase in productivity by 21%. That we are, when we get our teams to work together and they are accountable, increased retention, 41%, and that we grow the bottom line. So I'm going to get to your questions in just a second. So how are you recognizing? How are we recognizing? We're recognizing by finding out what people like. Now, some people love public recognition and others do not. And some people want to know that I'm going to give them more to do. I'm going to give them more responsibility. It is up to us as leaders to find out how people like to be recognized. And the fact is, don't we all love to be recognized? It is, I mean, there's a lot generationally. Beyond the generational need, we all have a human need to be recognized. And when we are held accountable, and then it happens, when we recognize, we do more of it. People think that there are many leaders I have worked with through the years who have thought, this is their job. This is what they should be doing. Why do I need to say thank you? Why do I need to publicly recognize them? This is what their job is. Well, here's the question. What's your outcome? Is your outcome to drive productivity? Is your outcome to make an impact on people? Is your outcome to actually affect people in a positive way within this accountability structure? And if it is, then we learn to say thank you. We learn to recognize people in the way that they want to be recognized. So one of the questions is, do type A folks have a harder time with the structure? Well, I have to tell you, type A folks like the structure. Everyone likes the structure. You have to figure out what works best. But if we are focused on, if you're type A and you're like, I have an outcome, this is what's going to drive me. They might not want to give you, and people don't need to give you all the ways they get there. They have their own tasks and how they do it. But if for type A, it's very easy to get like pulled in a million directions. So when you have something like an RPM, you're able to take ownership of your piece. You're able to be responsible, and you're able to share the wealth, so to speak. And so what happens is you may not need to know all the bits and pieces of how they get there, but we all get there together because we're all responsible for the outcome. And so I hope that answered your question about that. If not, please write it in. Please write it in. So, how do we do this? Now, I'm curious, how do we encourage innovative thinking? I would love to know what's one thing you've heard today that has, how do we encourage people to come up with other ideas? How do we encourage them? So please just jot in the chat. What do you think? What have you heard today that has given you something to just take a moment and pause and say, how do I encourage people? How do I create more opportunities? So I'm curious. Curious if you want to write that in the chat. If anything resonated with you. So as you're doing that, I wanted to share that another client of ours she was a client, and then she started her own company, and then now she's back in with a firm. And we have done this with many of, number one, places where she's worked and as a consultant, that once we instilled a culture of accountability, communication improved, collaboration skyrocketed, and our leaders began taking proactive steps instead of reacting. The ripple effect through the organization was undeniable. And so I love that, Ryan. Thank you. Helping them understand the big picture, giving them autonomy to contribute in a way that feels best, and rewarding successes. So absolutely huge. Reward and recognize examples of when people demonstrate innovative solutions to challenges. It's so interesting. I have a software that I use for my RPM. And at the end of doing anything, it's like I push a little button and it says, you've completed it, hallelujah, or whatever it says. And even that little like recognition from the computer feels nice. And we cannot take that for granted. I wanted to share a case study that may sound similar to something that you have experienced. The scenario, and we get this a lot with our clients. So teams struggling with project deadlines, the problem, lack of clear ownership and accountability. So what did we do? We took everything that we've discussed today. We've said, what are their roles and expectations? That we created RPMs. They had regular check-ins, progress reports, where they were like, what did you do? How far did that get you? How did that help? And it was all tied to the outcome. And then there was recognition. What ended up happening, and what ends up happening with our clients, is that improved on-time delivery and team morale. So what happens is we take away these expectations, like everyone is supposed to work like I work. Everyone's supposed to know it. If you're on this team and this is your title, you're supposed to know it. That's not the case. We all have a million things going on in our personal and professional lives. And so when we create the structure of accountability and purpose, your results will be absolutely profound. So I'm curious, one more poll. After this session, which aspect of accountability do you feel most motivated to improve in your leadership approach? Setting clearer expectations for your team, providing more consistent and constructive feedback, empowering team members to take greater ownership, enhancing communication and accountability, recognizing and rewarding accountable behavior more effectively. Perfect. And right after the poll is finished, I'll share a QR code so that you can download this deck if it was helpful for you. Okay, 5 more seconds. Okay. So here's the breakdown. Setting clear expectations for your team, 35%, providing more consistent and constructive feedback, 18%, empowering team members to take greater ownership, 18%, enhancing communication about accountability, 41%, recognizing and rewarding accountable behavior more effectively. Amazing, 24%. So the key is, as we look at everything that we've talked about today, we must lead by example. We hold ourselves accountable before expecting anything from others. When we take ownership of our own mistakes, we show others how to do the same, and we provide psychological safety by doing all of this for our teams. So as we went through today and we looked at the pillars of accountability, a framework that actually could help us, our RPM, and then some strategies of using plan and using the success formula and recognizing all of these pieces are absolutely enormous. And when I just looked at that poll, you know, one of the key things is communicate it. We talk about it. We take away the silent expectation that everyone should do and should do things a certain way, be a certain way, be accountable because that's what you would do. And realize, like, no, this is a conversation. Let's talk about our accountability culture within our team. It might be 2 of you. It may be more of you. So execution ultimately is, execution is the key. And so my question for you is, what are you putting into action? Here is a QR code. And Jade also put it in the chat that you can download it by clicking on that link as well. And you know, as we end today, I always love to share client successes. And this is a client who has been with us for over 25 years, and we work on all of these with his team, and as he's grown as a global leader within Microsoft. Please, if you have any questions or you'd like to talk about how this could all benefit your team, I would love to be a resource for you, be a guide for you, and help you with what you need and how you can make your team, how you can build in more accountability.
Thanks so much, Kim. We appreciate your insight and expertise in this area. And thanks to everyone who connected with us today. Look for an event survey and the replay to follow. And I hope everybody has a great afternoon.
Thanks, Kathy, so much. Oh, the QR code. The QR code is here, as well as, let's see, Jade. We put it in, and
I'll share that too. I'll also share it as part of our follow-up with the post-event survey, everybody.
Amazing. Kathy and everyone, thank you so much for having me. Such a pleasure.
Thanks, Kim. Bye-bye.
Bye.